In this module, we are going to look into research approach or methodology. Research approach or research methodology talks about the orientation, whether the study would be quantitative, qualitative, or mixed method. If your philosophical orientation is post positivist, then you are more inclined to use a quantitative study. If your philosophical orientation is interpretivist or constructivist, then your study would be oriented to qualitative study. If it is transformative, then it could be either qualitative or quantitative. And if it's pragmatic, also it could be qualitative, quantitative, or a mixed method. So the research approach depends upon the philosophical assumptions which you are undertaking. Now, we need to look into to understand what is now, once you identify qualitative, quantitative, and mixed method as a research methodology, then what would be your research design? Research design would be a types of inquiry, whether it is a qualitative, quantitative, and mixed methods with which provide a specific direction or procedure for the research study. So now you would ask, I have already defined in the research methodology, research, whether it is a qualitative, quantitative, or mixed method. What is so unique about the research method? So it is basically a strategy of inquiry. Here, we would look into, if it is a qualitative study, then we go down deeper and then try to classify it, whether it is an experimental study, whether it is a quasi-experimental study, or is it a non-experimental study like a survey. Also, we would say if the quantitative study, is it a cross-sectional study or a longitudinal study? Cross-sectional is trying to study at one time point, longitudinal at over the time period. In terms of qualitative study, you would look into whether you are trying to do a describing a phenomena, what we call a descriptive method, or it is a narrative research method wherein the participant is trying to narrate an experience. Maybe a new product is developed, and the researcher wants to know the user experience as regards to using the product. So he or she may use a narrative method in order so that the user narrates the experiences of using maybe a self-driving car. What would be the passenger experience of a or autonomous uh, automatically driven car? Phenomenology is a study wherein you study the lived-in experience of a person, like traumas people have gone through, working in different conditions people have gone through. So it's like living in an experience, and that is being studied. What is the what is the phenomenology or lived in experience of mothers who are HIV positive and who are in prison? Now, this is something like, if you want to study such a topic, then we need to be more looking. Our sample would be HIV positive women who are who are in the prison, and who are mothers. So the experiences, if at all you want to narrate, then you need to go deeper into studying this particular perspective. Then comes grounded theory, which is basically used to develop substantive theories in a qualitative studies. ethnography, wherein the participant becomes the researcher becomes a participant, in the sense, like suppose if I want to understand the lived in experience of a technician in a workplace, so he or she may work as a technician in order to gain experiences as regards to what it is like working as a technician in maybe a particular mine or so. So here in ethnographic study, it is a qualitative study, but the observer or the researcher is now being active in the ground, and he tries to observe by doing things. Case study. In case study, and researcher takes one case, and based on that case, he or she tries to study various variable in order to understand phenomena in much detail. The third type of methodology is a mixed method study. Here, in a mixed method study, both qualitative and quantitative study are studied together to solve a research problem. Now, it could be explanatory, sequential, or it could be a complex mixed method design, depending upon the requirement. So research design compared to research methodology, here now we go more deeper as regards to if it is a quantitative study, then what type of designs are we looking at is being envisaged in the research design. The last one is research methods. In this, we are going deeper in terms of the forms of data collection, analysis, interpretation that the researcher proposed for their study. In particular, what we are looking more is the design, the researcher, how he gathers the data, analyzes the data, interprets the data, and creates and try to interpret the findings. So here, after we have fixed, take for instance, we are doing a survey, then we go down further, how we are going to collect the data, who are going to be the participants, what would be the sampling strategy, and so on. And then what would be the data collection, what would be the data analysis method, whether it would be a regression model, whether it would be a structural equation model, and so on. So this brings an end to this module.